Can I really? Written by Hoppy. Read by Arashi. Anything to do with espionage is, and has always been, Hubert's job. He has spies working for him all over the continent, and then some. Despite all these people working for him, he prefers to do his duties alone. He's always had to rely on only himself, works best when there's no one else next to him. That goes for the dubious kind of work, as well as the more legal part of being a minister. And yet, he cannot always pick the work he has to do. Of course he knows that. He dedicated his life to the Emperor, Lady Edelgard. She assigns his work first and foremost. What goes on in the shadows? Well, she doesn't have to know all of it, but she's aware of more than she lets on. Recently, a figure has been spotted in a village close to Enbar, she told him a week ago. A mage, much like those employed by the Agarthians, traverses through the said village each night. The village isn't very special. It's very small and inhabited only by older people. They sleep early and rise with the sun. Still, someone must have seen the dark mage passing through, even during nighttime. That's something to note, but for later. Edelgard assigned Hubert to go and check what is happening at the village. She wants him to follow the strange mage, but be cautious about it. And she wants him to bring Ferdinand along, just in case any danger arises. Ferdinand, of all people. Not Bernadetta, who'd be much quieter or easier to miss. Not Byleth, who's extremely good at these things. No, it has to be Ferdinand. Ferdinand who's dramatic and sometimes can't physically keep their mouth shut. Talking and... Hubert loves to listen. Unfortunately, he soaks it all up, no matter how ridiculous the subject. Over a cup of ginger tea or coffee, in Ferdinand's presence, out of public view, he could imagine few pastimes he prefers to tea time with his fellow minister. It's become very important to him after all these years of war and taxing work for the Empire. And maybe all of it is simply so special because he gets to enjoy it with Ferdinand. Ferdinand, who he now has to bring on an espionage mission. He'd never refuse a direct order of the Emperor. Not anymore. No matter how dangerous this will be for Ferdinand. He bows to Her Majesty and tells her that it'll be done in due time. The problem is that he's not sure Ferdinand is up for the task. Or, rather, that he may be too worried about their safety. If he's real honest, Ferdinand is too dear to him. He wants to leave them behind, do this himself, because surely it's easy enough to work to shadow a soul mage. Why would he need a partner? Following someone is easier done the fewer people do it. Yet, it was Edelgard's order. No doubt she has already told the Prime Minister about it. It's inevitable. Hubert has to do this. He has to look out for Ferdinand and keep them safe. Make sure they don't misstep and ruin everything. They have to come back, alive and unharmed, or he'd never forgive himself. If they got captured or anything... No, he can't think like that. He has to prepare the best he can and make sure Ferdinand is ready for this. It won't even take long. They're just tracing a soul mage's movements. It'll probably be done in a single night or two. Maybe he'll confess his feelings afterwards. The warmth that's following him lately, all of it provided by vivid carrot-colored hair and gleaming marigold eyes, is rather enjoyable. So is the coffee, brewed by Ferdinand. The sugar they found, incomparable in taste. The milk they provided for tea time, so fresh and creamy. Their casual touches, their rare hugs and bright smiles. Yeah, he's got it bad. That's why he has to keep them safe, no matter what. So he gets them suitable clothes, all dark, and a mask, because of course they'd love to wear one, he imagines. Ah, and a hair tie is also necessary. A hood to cover the luscious and vibrant hair. It'd stand out too much. No matter how he loves it, it has to vanish for this mission. Anything flashy is a no-go. Weapons come second. Ferdinand won't be able to bring their lance. He needs them to become accustomed to his way of fighting, with daggers and poisons. Maybe he can teach them a simple fire spell. There's not enough time to prepare Ferdinand for this. So, we're going on a mission together. They sound so excited about it. Well, enthusiasm is one of their charm points. Hubert loves it. It appears so, he replies with a sigh. The clothes he got them for the operation are ready, stored in his wardrobe for the time being. If we're going to do this, I need you first to get ready for it. since you've never done anything akin to professional espionage." His words are intended to sound a bit callous to make Ferdinand understand the seriousness of the situation, but all they do is make them more excited about this. They're seriously too adorable. "I am all ears," they smile. He wishes he could capture that expression. Paint it. Write a poem about it. Savor it. Let's start with magic, then. All in all, Ferdinand does extremely well. They clearly have no talent in reason or dark magic, but they excel at faith. In no time, they can cast a Nosferatu and some simple healing spell. It's not the perfect outcome, but it certainly is more than Hubert had expected. Weapons hidden in boots and robes also pose no real problem to Ferdinand. They do find the presence of knives and daggers a little unsettling at first, but they are quick to draw and use them. Weapons are more their forte than magic. That fact puts Hubert's mind slightly at ease. Poisons are a total letdown, though. They refuse to use them at all. Ferdinand reluctantly tells him that they're scared of using these things. They try to shift the conversation then, praising Hubert's knowledge of poison instead. Okay, he supposes, Ferdinand doesn't have to become a perfect copy of himself. That'd be unsettling. Last but not least, Ferdinand fares decently at spying. They slip into the shadows, get a hang of the breathing technique Hubert has come up with to minimize one's presence as much as possible. By the time Hubert sets up for them a mock mission around Enbar, they successfully found some suspicious stuff going on in the east of Enbar, something Hubert was already aware of. Ferdinand looks so satisfied with himself, though, so Hubert doesn't let them know that he's got someone to take care of the shady happenings there already. Their bright face is too cute. And it's not like they don't deserve to feel a bit proud of themselves. They did what he thought would definitely be too much for them, and excelled at it, from the looks of it. None of Hubert's professional employees have seen or heard them sneak around. Perhaps, hopefully, Hubert is too worried about the mission ahead. Ferdinand is clever. They learn fast, and even if they can be dramatic, they are highly capable. For a novice, anyway. Yes, the mission has already been procrastinated long enough. The two of them really have to go check that suspicious mage out. The entire situation has been giving Hubert a very bad feeling, and he'd love to be rid of it. "You're well prepared indeed. What do you say we get the espionage done and over with?" Hubert doesn't look up from the papers he's looking through at the moment. The sun is slowly setting outside, and the heat is unbearable. Ferdinand is taking a last gander through Hubert's notes on poisons. They look to be at their wits' ends. "Really? I thought you'd never ask." Ferdinand chuckles and carefully sorts the notes again. They put them back in the usual place and stretch their arms towards the ceiling of Hubert's room. "Yes, I am more than ready." "Good. Get ready, then." Hubert dips his quill into the ink and scratches out an outrageous suggestion by the new Count Burgleys. Caspar's brother is a pain to deal with. "It'll be about 4 hours before we set out. Be back here by that time, dressed and prepared the way I told you." Ferdinand chuckles and pulls their newly acquired hair tie out of their sleeve, holding it up. "Aye, sir." They leave with no further ado, and Hubert lets himself sigh heavily. If they open the window now, he'll have an insect fest in here. But it's so hot. He can't focus. His head aches. His body is stiff from sitting in this chair all day. Ferdinand will really accompany him on a mission. They'll melt into the shadows, become quiet as a human can be, track a suspicious figure. It's bittersweet. It doesn't suit them, and yet, seeing them become a kindred spirit to him is oddly charming in its own right, doing one of the things he's best at with Ferdinand in tow. He can't say he dislikes the fact alone. If it were any safer, he'd consider taking them along more frequently. Yes, if only. As things are, Hubert would be glad if this mission is a one-time thing only. Ferdinand doesn't belong into that part of his life. They are supposed to be as safe as they can possibly be. They're supposed to help forge relations, bring a bit of fun to otherwise boring meetings. They're supposed to surprise them with a new kind of coffee and not to get out there to do some dubious task in the middle of the night. Hubert shakes his head and sighs once more. It's not like him to ponder about a simple mission quite as much. He sorts his finished work and leaves a pile of non-finished papers to work on as soon as he gets back. And so, he gets ready himself. A couple loaded syringes containing various drugs, a knife on his upper thigh, a dagger in his boot, another tied securely to his back, a pocket knife in his sleeve. He pulls on gloves and seals his room with a swift spell against unwelcome guests, and leaves. Ferdinand is already on their way back to his room, halfway dressed in their espionage suit. They give him a grin upon seeing him. Good. Hubert simply waves them along and proceeds towards the secret side exit of the castle. It's already dark. Most torches have been doused. No one moves around. Not even the staff is still up. Perfect. Get dressed now, Hubert whispers once they're almost at the exit. Ferdinand puts on their mask, pulls their hood up, and buttons their shirt up all the way. They're beautiful. He doesn't dwell on any distracting thought, though. Hubert merely gives them a once-over before proceeding into the courtyard, towards a well-hidden hole in the walls, one he barely fits through, but manages to crawl through anyway. Ferdinand follows with no comment or complaint. They are always right behind him. It is a weird sensation, having someone follow you and not be afraid of them. Something completely new to Hubert, and hard to grasp. He eventually moves to walk next to Ferdinand. He can't do this. It's too unfamiliar. He can't help feeling anxious about having someone follow him. He was decisively trained to not let anyone tail him, and he's not sure it'll ever feel normal to him. Such is a Vestra's life. Hubert occupies himself by watching Ferdinand looking around the forest they'd entered a bit ago. It's the shortest way to the village that is their destination. It's not quite as silent here as it was in Enbar. A gentle breeze is blowing. Hubert can hear leaves rustling here and there. Nocturnal animals also skitter around in the distance. It's still somewhere warm, but bearable by now. He's keeping a watchful eye on anything moving on the path ahead when Ferdinand grabs his arm and pulls him behind a tree. Hubert goes straight to alert, eyes fixed on his companion. They gaze into the distance as if trying to focus on a specific point, so he keeps still, waiting for them to share what they're seeing. All right. They unceremoniously let go of him and step back on the path, like nothing ever happened. Wait just one moment. What was that? Hubert hissed, narrowing his eyes. Sorry. Ferdinand doesn't meet his eyes. They look a tad embarrassed. I've always wanted to do that. Hubert either wants to rip their hair out one by one, or his own. He can't tell, so they deemed it okay to act out a ruse, on an espionage mission that is clearly, certainly, most definitely no joke. Do that again, and it'll be the end of you. As if he could ever lay a hand on Ferdinand. This is not some stupid opera of yours. Do you even know what the word seriously means? Ferdinand looks completely apologetic, almost dejected. Hubert would normally be mad by then, but finds himself incapable of feeling any such thing. Nothing happened after that. No one was harmed. No threat was actually anywhere close. And Ferdinand? They actually did a good job with this maneuver. Had there really been some danger ahead, it would have been the correct move. Hide and make no noise. Observe. Avoid confrontation. Hubert really is growing soft, isn't he? He finds himself smiling. If his father knew... He hopes that the old bastard is turning in his grave, unable to rest because his son is developing emotions. Fondness. Friendships. Ferdinand notices and touches his arm, smiling as well. They don't say anything more, relief clear on their face. And so they continue on through the forest. They pass an owl hooting on a tree above. Ferdinand catches a cobweb, grimacing, but not letting out a noise while Hubert wants to chuckle. They encounter no human being in the forest whatsoever. The true challenge lies beyond. Hubert and Ferdinand move into the village hurriedly, hiding in someone's well-kept garden. Its hedges are tall enough to cover their crouching forms. Neither of the two is small, per se. It's not only the perfect spot to wait for movement, but also one of the only ones that has a clear view of the main road through the village. Apparently, this is where the Dark Mage passes through. Lucky for them, but also odd. Would their target really present themselves so carelessly? Hubert has been thinking about it. A trap isn't something he doesn't expect. But that's why Ferdinand is here. Surely that's what his liege was thinking by sending them both to this village. She's always been worrying a bit too much about his safety. Not that he doesn't appreciate it. Though he is always a bit touched when she fusses about him, actually. She's the only one he'd completely accept the behavior from, though. She's the only one he trusts fully and wholly. His eyes scan the road. Nothing. No noise, no dark mage in sight. Well, espionage requires patience. A lot of it. Sometimes it takes days to achieve anything at all. Which, hopefully, won't be the case this time. He doesn't want to sneak into a barn to catch some shut-eye, surrounded by livestock or hiding in some stables. He abhors the idea of having to do anything of the sort. He's relieved for a split moment when he can make out footsteps approaching their hiding spot. Quiet ones, but definitely audible to him. And then there's the Dark Mage. Short, definitely one of the Agarthian employees, and clad in all black robes. A mask adorns their face as well. All in all, they seem pretty carefree, their arms crossed behind their head and a spring in their step. How naive. Do they want to leave an expression of confidence? Is this demeanor a trap? Hubert's senses say yes to both of those questions, but there's no time to ponder. Ferdinand is grabbing at his sleeve, tugging gently and gesturing down the road. There's a Dark Mage to be followed, trap or not. It's their mission, no matter what. So Hubert leads Ferdinand out of their hiding spot and towards the next one. He's proud of how inaudible their steps are. Fast, too, and they keep their body as close to the ground as they can while moving behind the next house they pass. Their target doesn't seem to notice anything, or at least pretends not to. Hubert and Ferdinand pursue the mage until the village turns into forest once more. There's a gentle upward slope beginning a mere few meters into a sea of trees. A river can be heard in the distance. Being out of the village makes everything easier, in Hubert's opinion. A forest harbors more hiding spots, and if either of them make a misstep, it can easily be brushed off as the sound of a nocturnal animal on the hunt. At the same time, though, he knows this is a double-edged knife situation. While they have an easier time trailing after their target, the same could be said about anyone following them. He's glad he has taught Ferdinand about the possibility of them ending up being the ones pursued. Hubert is nothing if not thorough, after all. If he goes out there with someone, they need to know how to look out for each and every danger that could await them. Especially Ferdinand, though. They are looking ahead, but keep their guard up. It is easy to tell from their body language that they are thinking the same kinds of things as Hubert himself. Their mind is bright as their smile. They're a fast thinker. One more thing to adore about them. The slope grows steeper as they go. Nothing really happens. The mage doesn't notice them, and there's no indication that they're being tailed. For a while, at least. The situation changes in an instant. They don't notice anything is amiss before it happens. The mage is gone, vanished into thin air. The next thing Hubert knows is that Ferdinand is pushing him away, not keeping to the ground any longer. Go! They breathe in urgency. They're coming! Go! Who? What? He realizes a moment after Ferdinand, much to his shame, that they are now far from alone. The mage drew them right into a trap. Figures. Now! Ferdinand urges. Are they really trying to play the chivalrous hero now? They push at him again, so he does indeed back off. This is actually a good opportunity for a ruse. They turn around, run, and hope Ferdinand will be all right. Once he's far enough away, he takes a breath, then starts preparing to catch the ambush from behind. If it is indeed the Agarthians, well, they'd surely not harm Ferdinand too bad. The likes of them prefer to keep potential guinea pigs alive, after all. Hubert finds them again easily. Ambushing people who think they've won is all too easy. Even if the mage lured them into a trap, they got complacent way too early. Unprofessional. Naive. He gets the first one, still lurking behind a tree, all too easily. Killing without letting the victim make a noise is Hubert's specialty. In no time, about each one of the assailants are dead at his feet. Only a few remain. Some of them have already come out to try and get their hands on Ferdinand. Ferdinand won't be so easily taken, though. Hubert is proud of how successfully they fend off attackers. 2 are down. Another 3 are still struggling to get close. Hubert aims carefully, reading the movements of the dark mages easily. He hits them straight up, a simple spell of death, and they drop dead instantly. Ferdinand doesn't get distracted by it. They've got a knife in their hand, and they take care of the remainder of the ambush easily. Once that's done, he meets them, a bit cautiously. He won't be taken by surprise a second time. Ferdinand, for the first time since departing Enbar, looks slightly shaken. Hubert has to smile. They've done so well for much longer than he would have assumed. He quickly approaches them and offers his open arms. They slot in immediately, and he indulges for a moment. "Are you all right?" he whispers after a moment. He can't be careless there, no matter how nice the moment. "Fine," Ferdinand replies quietly. "A few scratches, is all." Poisoned weapons, Hubert's mind provides. The ones they're dealing with here are not so cheap that they'd use uncoated, normal blades. "Come." Hubert lets go of Ferdinand and pulls them along, bringing some distance between them and the massacre. He'll have to take a look at those scratches, the sooner the better, but staying right in the midst of corpses is just asking to be assaulted again. Before they decide on what to do next, they definitely need to regroup anyway. Ferdinand follows behind quietly, not questioning Hubert at all. Once at a small clearing, he halts and lets go of their arm. He turns to face them. "Show me those scratches," he demands. Ferdinand turns to the side and shows off their left shoulder. "Scratches," they'd said. "Stabbing wounds is what Hubert sees." "How are those scratches?" He's on their shoulder immediately, already wiping the blood away with his sleeve. More is pooling out instantly. Ferdinand turns to look at their shoulder. "Oh," they mutter awkwardly. "Well, it felt like scratches anyway." Luckily, Hubert has found a healing spell he's not terrible at. He goes through the words, the motions, and presses his gloved hand to Ferdinand's injured shoulder. Gentle red light engulfs it for a couple of minutes. Neither of them speak a word, both following their own train of thought. Ferdinand sighs contentedly once the healing is done. The wounds are closed. Still, just healing the injuries may not be enough. If there was indeed poison on the weapons used in the assault, Hubert wonders if the antidote he brought will be enough to fight the venom. Who knows what poison the Agarthians have come up with since he got his hands on the last sample of one. He really has to hurry here. He has to mark his way back to the village in some way so that he can come back another time. Maybe during daytime. They won't expect him then. Maybe he can carve into trees or... Hubert... Ferdinand looks to be red in the face. They're shaking. The poison is already effective, huh? He pulls out a small bottle of antidote and hands it to Ferdinand. "Drink this. We're going back for tonight." Clearly, Ferdinand wants to question that decision. They want to say they can go on, that this is nothing, but they hold back for once. Thankfully so, Hubert thinks. They don't have all the time in the world to get back to the Imperial Palace. Not if they want Ferdinand to live and see another day. Thank God their complexion grows more natural after they down the antidote. Their face is less reddish in color, but still looks concerning. They can't seem to walk at their fastest either, always staggering a bit as soon as they move back to the way they came from. Hubert leaves some indents on every other tree for good measure. One won't really be able to figure out that he was the one to leave them, maybe some bird or some insect, but not a human. With this, he'll be able to return to this place, no problem. And next time, he knows what he could potentially be dealing with. He'll get Ferdinand, should they come with once more, even better prepared. He'll take along various antidotes. Maybe he'll also make Ferdinand wear armor underneath the dark robes. But those thoughts can wait for the time being. Getting home first. They are pretty far from Enbar. The road through the forest back to the village is not as easily navigable as the one leading from there back to Enbar. Ferdinand's knees buckle once the village comes into sight. Their breaths are rugged, their eyes unfocused. They sink to the ground, holding their head and shaking once again. Shaking badly. "Hubert, they wheeze out, unable to make direct eye contact. Flames. He needs to get them to Enbar, faster. If only he'd brought a horse. Why didn't he get a horse into this village for any emergency cases beforehand? Right. Would have been too suspicious. Hubert pulls one of Ferdinand's arms around his shoulder and drags them off the floor, towards the village and across it. He's certainly not made for lifting another human being. He's fast, but not strong. His muscles ache pretty quickly, but he has to. He has to get Ferdinand back to the palace in Enbar. The sun is rising. Ferdinand is trembling worse by the moment. Hubert is at his limits. If he goes much further, he'll drop their companion. Ferdinand. They need help. By everything unholy. He's weak. So weak. He should have prepared much better. Hold on, Ferdinand. Hold on. He comes as close to begging as he can allow himself. Please. We'll be okay, Ferdinand mutters back. I know it. And they still sound so confident regardless of the situation. Ferdinand's arm slips out of their grip. Slowly, they sink to the floor of the well-used path through the forest. He can't do anything more than gently seat them on the ground, lean their back against the tree. They put on a smile that looks more like a pained grimace, cough laughing at the same time. Okay, they slur. All is well. He could make a break for it to Enbar, get a doctor or healer and return as fast as possible. But that'd mean leaving Ferdinand here, and there's a good chance they'll be gone when he returns. No, he has to lift them again and... Lord! My lord! Hubert has his dagger ready as soon as he hears a voice, noticing that someone's here. One of his most trusted spies, eyes completely hidden by a mask. Right now, he could cry in relief. Obviously, he doesn't. He has to keep a strict tone and calm demeanor in front of his employees. That is the Prime Minister, the spy gathers, tilting her head a bit. Is that poison? What happened? No, wait, later. Do you need help? Yes, we've been ambushed. Back to Enbar. He rises to his feet, watching her lift Ferdinand on her back effortlessly. They merely made a noise, body entirely limp. He gulps. She takes off, and he follows, grateful to have such reliable allies. The three of them arrive at the palace in no time. Hubert feels fatigue chewing up on him, but he can waste no time. Ferdinand is still stable. His spy has brought them to an infirmary and vanished into thin air afterwards. Without further ado, Hubert draws a bit of Ferdinand's blood. He researches, at some point joined by Manuela. She seems a bit tipsy, but her mind works as well as ever. Do you think it could be some kind of venomous mushroom? The ones that grow in a western place between the former Alliance and Adrestia territories? Many of those plants were used by... those slithering weirdos that have their roots in plants from those parts. Manuela sips a bit of coffee, sighing and rubbing her temples. She's quickly taken to coffee upon learning of its existence through Hubert. Apparently it helps with hangovers or something. Hubert wouldn't know. He too craves coffee, but Ferdinand has begun fading in and out of conscious. He has to find something to help. Niglyph mushrooms? Common to rare. They usually grow close to the shores of lakes, especially in the climate of the area Manuela has described. Not fatally poisonous, but inedible all the same. Phlegm mushrooms, rare, found in mountains of a certain height, usually grows next to a specific kind of flower, extremely poisonous. Flip mushrooms, rather common to grow in rainy and lush areas, can be boiled and eaten, but cause hallucinations if eaten raw. What else is there? Nothing comes to mind. Hubert fetches an antidote for the Niglyph poison from his room in a hurry. Maybe, hopefully, it'll help. Manuela is sitting by Ferdinand's bedside, a tad too relaxed for the situation. Shouldn't she care more? You know, I think Ferdinand here is getting better. She tilts her head and rests her cheek on one palm. Better? It is true. Their breathing is nice and slow. They're asleep, and the trembling has almost completely subsided. They look peaceful now. Hubert has never seen a poison like this one. Something to temporarily take someone almost completely out of commission, yet losing all of its effects just as quickly. Or maybe the antidote he gave them after healing really did help. Either way, he sags down on a seat and lets his head tilt backwards. He stares at the ceiling, head blank. Just half an hour ago, he'd be so helpless, standing around in the cold, dark forest, teased by the sky slowly gaining color. He takes Ferdinand's hand, holds it in both of his. They're alive. Once they've rested, he'll do some tests to make sure they really will be fine. To hell with it. Maybe he'll even confess. After all, what if it's him next time? Selfish as it is, he wants Ferdinand to at least be aware of his feelings before he dies. They shift, grumbling about something, then sighing. Yes, he definitely can't hold his affection much longer.